And the first topic today comes to us from Rich Clark, who writes, The Nun is a huge success. Not only did it break the record for the biggest opening in the Conjuring franchise, but it's also the second biggest September opening of all time, with three of the top 5 September movies of all time being horror films. Do you think more studios will look to release future horror films in September as well? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Rich. And yes, The Nun opened huge. It opened huge to over $50 million. And yes, it is the biggest opening of any of the Conjuring films of all time. There is now, I believe, 5 in the franchise. Let's take a look at it. So, obviously, The Nun, opening weekend, that's the top line, is opening weekend. Opened to $53 million. That is like $12 million better than The Conjuring, the original Conjuring, which opened with 41.86. In third place is Conjuring 2. That opened to 40.41 million. Annabelle opened at 37.13 million. And Annabelle Creation opened to 35 million. Now, this will give us a little bit of an indication about how well The Nun could potentially do. So we see The Conjuring opened with 41, made 319 million. Conjuring 2 opened to about the same amount, ended up with 320, 257 for Annabelle, 306 for Annabelle Creation. I really like Annabelle Creation, by the way. So I think it's safe to say that we're looking at probably the 4th film in the Conjuring franchise here that will break the $300 million mark. And keep this in mind. This movie was made for a grand total of $22 million. $22 million. And I believe at $22 million, I think that's the biggest budget they've ever had on a Conjuring film. And if it's going to follow the pace that the other films did, I think it's pretty safe to say this film is going to cross the $300 million mark worldwide. Now, not only did it do great for the Conjuring series, it did great, as you point out, in September. It is now the second biggest opening weekend of all time in the month of September, trailing only behind It. Here's the top 10 opening weekends in September. We got It at number 1, at way ahead in first place at 123 million. Now we've got The Nun at 53. Hotel Transylvania 2 and Hotel Transylvania 1 come up in third and fourth with 48 and $42 million. Insidious Chapter 2 in fifth place with 40. Kingsman, Sweet Home Alabama. Remember that movie? I like Sweet Home Alabama. Sully, Magnificent Seven, and The Equalizer round out. What is interesting in this, as Rich pointed out, is that 3, let's not count Hotel Transylvania 2 or Hotel Transylvania 1, but 3 of the top 5 films of all time September are horror films. They're horror films. You would think that, October, the month of Halloween, that's the time to release horror films. But it seems like with 3 of the top 5 in September, maybe that's the time. Because let's look at October. The biggest openings in October of all time, there are 3 horror films on there, but they're in the top 10. And only one of them's in the top 5. We got Paranormal Activity 3, which opened to $52 million. That's in the 3rd spot. But then you got to go all the way down to Paranormal Activity 2 in the 9th spot at $40 million, and The Grudge in the 10th spot at $39 million. So it kind of looks, oddly enough, like October, or September, I should say, may be the better month to release these horror films. Now, this is all just anecdotal, and who's really to say? Halloween, of course, is going to be opening in a few weeks, so that's going to add to that total. I'm sure the Halloween film will break $39 million, so you can add Halloween to probably the top 10 list of all-time opening October films. But it is interesting. Look, I'm not a big fan of The Nun. I went in with high expectations. I loved Annabelle Creation. And The Nun is not awful. It's not terrible. It has some redeeming elements to it. Absolutely it does. But overall, I thought it was a little bit of a step down, but there's no denying the success. And I think a lot of the success can be attributed to how good Annabelle Creation was. People saw Annabelle Creation. They couldn't wait for the next one. Here we got The Nun, the next one in the Conjuring franchise. Big opening weekend. Another huge success. And they just keep rolling with making these movies for $6 million, $22 million, $12 million, and they all cap over $200 and $300 million in the box office. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a recipe of great success, and we'll just have to see how far The Nun can go. All right, let's move on now to topic number 2.